You all right, James? Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, I went and got a load of wood for my wood burning stove from Snainton, and they sell you a dumpy bag. It's gone up to £70 this year. It was £50 2 years ago. And as I was stacking it all, ready for winter, I kept finding pieces like this. I think of about 12 pieces like that, which is spalted beech. So I lifted those out, and I thought, well, if I could turn enough pieces to sell to cover the cost of my logs, then I'm on a winner. So from a piece like this, I managed to cut it up into some 3-inch cubes, and from a 3-inch cube I make an apple, and I can sell apples at £10. They were selling at £10 at the Thornton Show and other places. So £10, that's £20 so far, so I'm on my way. 2-inch squares, I can turn mice, and I'll show you how I turn one of these tonight. Mice at the moment sell at about £8 each. We used to sell them at £4, and then we thought, this is ridiculous, the amount of time they take, it should be more than that. So again, I know that they will sell at £8 because I've sold them at £8. And then there's quite a few little bits left over. Well, you're not going to throw those away because you can make light pulls. And I reckon that light pull's worth £2 at least, maybe even £3. But people will buy them at £2. So from one piece, I've got £20, a couple of mice, 36, at least 10, 15 at £2. So I'm up to £60 from that. And I said, I picked out about 10 pieces like this from my log store. I'm going to have to go back because I need some logs to burn on the fire as well. So you've had an apple turned for you by Phil Greenwood not too long ago, so I'm not going to do that tonight. But the light pulls, although I'm trying to save money on my wood, I bought this little kit, and it's a Planet light pull kit. And I've heard about them, and I've seen people using them, and the fact is you can use them for a lot more than light pulls. And they're just 2MT, goes in there, and at the other end I can put this little drill in. If I am aware that in a month's time, most of you will be going to Harrogate, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, ask some of the regulars here and they'll tell you about the Harrogate show. But you'll find a stall there, RDG, John, yeah, RDG Engineering, and they make things for model engineers, but they also make things for woodturners. So I got this from them. It's a keyless chuck, and they're really not that expensive in terms of a supplier. So we can just do this. Now this should take about 5 minutes. When you're thinking about how much you're going to charge for your pieces that shows sales, just have a think about how long they take you. Because if this takes me 5 minutes and I charge £2, let's ignore the cost of the wood because it was free. But I'm doing the wrong thing here. I'm a step ahead of myself. Now, 12 of these would take you an hour, and that's if you do it in 5 minutes. And that means you're paying yourself £24 an hour. Well, that's not what my plumber charges me, or an electrician, or anybody, so it certainly isn't what I used to work, earn as a teacher. I think I got £26 an hour as a teacher. Right. I've still not got the right chuck on. Because what I want to do is to hold one of these tiny pieces. There we go. Now this might do it. Yeah, I think this will do it. I've brought along a few chucks. One of the things that you will do if you stick with wood turning is buy a number of chucks. Yeah, that'll do. Yeah. So I have half a dozen different chucks. I know when you buy a chuck, you can buy other jaws to go with them, but you'll soon get fed up of taking out 8 little screws to put a new set of jaws on. So for each different size set of jaws, I've got a different chuck. Now I know these can be 100, 120 pounds or more, but if you spread it over a number of years, your wife doesn't notice so much. Right, so, okay. I'm just going to drill through this, and I should be able to just push it in. And then there's a bigger, oops. The first drill is 3 mil, and then this one is 6 mil. And that just creates a little blank. And what I would do, of course, normally, is I'd do a batch of 20 or 30 of those, so that I wasn't changing the chuck or anything every time. And I'd do, everything I do tonight, I would do 20 or 30 at a time. Right, so this is what I wanted to be at. There we go. And then this thing just fits. The 6 mil hole is, you know, when you've got a thread and you knot it, you want somewhere for the knot to go in so you can't see it. So that takes care of that, but it also fits on here. And you could more or less turn that as it was, but it's safer to bring up the tailstock and just hold it there. No, it's not threaded, it's just friction. Yeah, it's just friction. So it will actually hold it for the final bit if you need it to, and it will hold other things as well. Now, have we got a smaller? In here. Yeah, oh, here it is. There we go. That's it's already taken me more than 5 minutes, because that's because I'm faffing about. In my own workshop, I'd know where everything was, and I would be quicker. Let's take that off there before it falls off. And put the speed up. Yeah. And I'll put this up to about 2000. on my own. I've got a notebook like this one at home, and I have set speeds, and I usually have one set at 2,000. For anything as small as this, you want to be going pretty quick. So we've got there in the end. So there are some presets, but the biggest one's 1,000, I think. Right, so this is a ball gouge, sorry, a spindle gouge. I think it's a 1/2 inch one, I can never remember. Henry Taylor. I got one of these from clear out of a garage once, and absolutely loved it. But I loved it so much that it got down to about here. So I ended up buying another. It's just suits me. And so there we go. It is on friction, so you can't go too heavy with it. Now, most of what I do, if you ever see my stuff, most of it is natural wood. And I don't do very much at all colouring or texturing. And what I like about wood turning is shape and form. And even on a little thing like this, you've got lots of decisions to make about the shape of the piece. And it's just the same as doing something this big. A couple of years ago, I did a demonstration of turning a big 12-inch finial. It's the same process doing this tiny little thing. So I'm thinking that we ought to come in here. Need to just check whether that is round. Yeah. And you can take this right up to the to the drive, and then we'll come in here. We'll have a bit of a neck on it. Turn it around like that. It looks a bit chubby at the moment, so we'll go in a bit. Still a bit chubby. And just turn it off like that. And that's it, really. And that did take about 2 minutes. All it needs to do a little bit of sanding, which I will do. Won't create very much dust. It really doesn't need much sanding at all. I don't bother changing the speed on something this small. If it was bigger, I'd turn the speed down to sand it. 120. Probably go up to 240 would be fine enough. Depends how finished you'd like it to be, really. 240. This is Rhino grip paper, which I like. There we go. Now, a lot of things that you'll see of mine have got a little bit of decoration on. I'm just going to put a line in there and 2 lines here. And that's using a point tool. I don't know if you can, what should I be pointing at, Martin? strange it is to look at yourself upside down. There. So it's a 3 point, 3 sides, just brought to a point, 20-degree bevel, like a parting tool. I find it absolutely invaluable for doing little beads like this. And then anybody that's been on the training sessions will have seen me get a little bit of Formica and just rub it there, and it creates a nice black burn. This is a piece of Formica, you know, like tabletop. No? Kitchen top. Too young. Is there a modern name for it? Laminate. That'll do. It's not laminated though. Yeah. All right. You can use a piece of wire. You get a piece of guitar wire, or he's googling Formica. Yeah. I was given this from a sample book from a kitchen installer. I'm sure we could probably get some from. In fact, Keith, did you? Did they? Well, can you bring some next time? Can you bring some and we chop it up for people? I'm not worried about that. Well, Robin might be. Yeah, it's a lot easier than using a piece of wire, but you get the same effect. So there we go. Can put a bit of sanding sealer on it. Gives it a nice colour. Remember, this is scrap wood from a firewood bag. And I reckon that'll sell for £2. Somebody was asking us at the last sale if we had light bulbs, and for once we didn't have any in. So there you go. If you all go home and make these, we'll have 200 at the next one, won't we? I won't sell my wares. Yeah. Now you could finish this all in one go with something like a polish called Speed and Ease, which is a friction polish. You just put it on your cloth, put it on there, and it does the job. The friction burns it into the wood, and it's sealed and finished. I don't do that. Well, I have done it, but I haven't brought any with me tonight. I use, to get this off, you just need to twist, and there we go. Just check the top's okay, and it is. If it wasn't, you could actually turn it on here and just, you know, just touch up the top if you wanted to make sure it's nice and smooth. As I say, that is capable of turning something, even though it's just on friction. I'll show you what I do for polishing on another piece later on. But I reckon that's, you know, it's a nice, simple thing to do. And, you know, you're talking about pieces as small as this. And they're all full of spalting and a little bit of burr in some cases, I think. You could use a bigger piece and make a bigger pull and charge a bit more. So the thing I like about it is, you know, you can get the different shapes. There's one without the rings, another one skittle shape, and you can have a lot of fun playing. Well, I can have a lot of fun playing around with the different shapes, and that's what I like about wood turning. I like the shape much more than the wonderful texturing and colouring that some wood turners do. Okay, so that's a light pull. These are about, well, the kit is about £20. So you have to make 10 light poles to make it worthwhile. Snainton sell them. I got this from Snainton, and this is a Planet, but they will be on sale at Harrogate, and I would imagine RDG that I mentioned will have them, and they'll probably be a little bit cheaper. Axminster do them, yeah. But that's such a nice little idea. It just saves you, if you haven't got this, you can just use 2 different drill sizes, and you could make your own one of these. There you go. A bit of Iraco. I turned one on this just to make sure it works, and it does exactly the same job. That fits in my jaws, and that didn't cost anything. But as I say, I like buying tools as long as I can find a use for them. Okay, so the second thing I did from the log was one of these little mice. I've probably turned about 200 of these, and I've sold just about every one of them. And my son's turned another 200, and he sold them all as well. The time we did a sale up at Gothland, we ran out of mice. Everybody wanted mice, and Christine had done a load of her mice as well, and they all sold. So we'll have a look at how to make one of these little fellas. And I'll be honest, I got the idea from this book, Turning Vintage Toys, nice and clear, nice diagrams, and again, there we are. So everything's in there. £16, £16.99, 200 mice, even at a £5 each. You know, it's paid for itself over and over again. And I've made a few of the other bits in as well. I don't always use what design they say. I tend to vary it a bit. One of the things about these is you can make them quite a bit smaller, probably not a bit bigger. About that size is about right. They can have slightly more pointed noses. My son, the first time he made them, they look grotesque. And I had to point out that he just hadn't quite got it's ever strange, but if you go slightly wrong with bits of it, it'll look awful. So you do need to get the right proportions for the mouse. But anyway, let's have a look at one of them. Now, I think the best mice come from colourful pieces of wood. So yew is a very good one. And this one has he gone? The mouse has run away. He's on the lathe. The lathe bed. No, that's a log. I was looking for the little mouse. Oh, there he is. There he is. That's the spalted beech. Nice and colourful. The ones in the book, he's actually dyed them, and I don't like that. But, okay, so I would put this between centres. Put this back on. I like to use a stab centre, if I remember to bin it. You're not used to stab centres, that's a stab centre. I think Sorbia brought them out and called them something different now. Yep, cheers. I think they call them crown centres, so because the stab is a trademark. And strictly speaking, that's not an offcut, but anything about that size you can use to make a mouse. So I buy little logs like this from Snainton, and I can usually get 3 mice out of 1 log. The log costs about £2. Mice cost £8 each. The bits of leather cost next to nothing. So again, it's quite a good profit. I've forgotten to bring any protection, so I should say that I wouldn't normally do this without protection, because the bark is probably going to fly off. So I'm going to stand over here. I probably can go a bit faster. Go a lot faster. You're right, Phil, we should put some presets on here. So I'm just cutting in that direction so the bark flies off that way. All I'm doing is getting it round. I can go even faster than that. Come on. There we go. Now, because you can make them any size, a little bit more, it doesn't matter what this diameter is. I'm just getting rid of that. Doesn't matter if that stays on. But this one, I think it's about 1.5 inches, something like that. Yeah. And that's slightly bigger. So I'm going to just take it down a little bit more. Now, the picture in the book suggests you turn it like this, between centres, and the nose is at this end. I quite like to finish the nose off on the lathe, so I'm going to turn mine this way around. And to do that, I like to have a base on it, and I can turn this down to about 3 millimeters and not worry about the piece snapping off and spoiling it, because he's going to get a hole drilled up his bottom, which is going to be 3 millimeters. So I don't necessarily need to hold this in here or anything, but if I can, might just fit in there, then I will. And if not, then it doesn't matter. Now, although the diameter doesn't matter, to avoid getting a grotesque mouse, believe me, they do look horrible when they're not right. Whatever that diameter is, so it's 40. So I'm going to turn the bottom as a semicircle because it looks best. So I need this to be about 20 here. So that's where he's going to go from, in that direction. And if that isn't a circle, it's not desperate, but it doesn't look as good unless that is a semicircle. That's the best shape for this back end of the mouse. What you don't want is a pointed bottom to him. And then the rest of it, there is a dimension in the book, but I tend to do it by eye. And it's really like making an egg. Some of you will know I've made a lot of eggs. It's about the same dimensions. It's just that a mouse is a bit more pointed. So the same scrap pieces of wood that would make eggs would also make mice. Now with you never quite know what you're going to get. There's a lot of sapwood on here and not much of the heartwood, the browner parts. The ideal mice would have a little bit more brown in them, so they're a bit like piebald mice. But it is what it is, and just make that slightly less like an egg. Okay. For the other end, I will use a parting tool. To get in there. I'll just leave enough on while I give it a quick sand. Again, I'm not going to bother about the speed. It's only a small piece. Get him as smooth as I can. Nice patterning on it, but so it would be nice if there was a bit more heartwood showing. But never mind. 180. Keep feeling a little bump here, and I think it's the tiny bit of bark that's still there, which I want to leave because it's a nice bit of colour. 240. Probably go up to 320 normally, but I won't bore you and I'll stop here. Okay. Now, as I say, if the piece is big enough, for me to hold in the jaws, then I will do so. Because this would allow me to, no, I've made it too small. It would allow me to do the nose, but it's not going to do it. What I could do, and what I will do, is I'll change the chuck. Now again, you'll see me faffing about with chucks a lot tonight, but that's the wrong piece, isn't it? What am I trying to do? Don't want that at all. So when I first started, as I was telling you earlier, I had a smaller lathe and it had a different size thread on it. So I've kept all the chucks from that lathe and just bought these adapters, which is why it's so far away from the headstock. But so I really recommend having a few different size chucks. Now this is too big, so I'm going to take a bit off it. That will still go in there. And when you get into sort of production mode, I probably make 10 at a time, then all this faffing about isn't necessary, because you make all the blanks and then you make all the, yeah. Yeah. It would, because it's a 3mm hole, yeah. So there you go, that's another way of doing it. All I want is to be able to just round that nose off. But you're right, it would be tight enough just to do that final bit. But anyway, we'll do it this way. I could have used this chuck from the start anyway. There we go. It's always best to bring the centre back up just to the tailstock, just so that it is centred. But then I'm going to take that away and finish off the nose. Right, there it is. Come on. There we go. And then his nose should be a little rounded, not too pointed. Okay. I'll just sand the end. And again, we could use the okay, it's not looking much like a mouse at the moment, but I assure you it's getting there. I found that if you don't put the eyes in the right place, it looks a bit weird. Grotesque again. I should have got one of these things off my son, but I think he probably burnt them. So I've just put a line on for where the eyes should go, and then also now there are angles shown in the book, but they look better if the eyes are quite close together. And then the ears need to be in line behind the eyes and in line with the nose, and they need to be about here. So, okay, so that's the mouse. Need to drill. Yeah, that's the drills. And the eyes are 3 millimeters and the ears are 4 mil. And best to, oh, I like to use brad point drill bit. Just if you use an ordinary drill bit, it will wobble on this kind of surface. So a brad point, there's probably another name for them. Anybody? No. I call them brad points, but they stick in and they shouldn't wander. About 5 mils it needs to go in. And then this one, it's hot. There. And then 4 mils for the ears. Now, I think I bought some old ones. Yeah. One of the problems with you is it's prone to splitting. And I've just put 2 holes in, which create a weakness. And the drill bit got very hot, which stresses it more. And some of the old ones I've got now, to be honest, this has been out in the garden, being part of some grandchildren's game with witches. I think you have to pop 5 of them into a brew. And you can see it's just split all the way down there. And he's split in all kinds of directions from his tail. And this one could well do the same. There's another one. So he's split from his ear to his bottom. So it's one of the disadvantages of using U. But anyway, this is a 4 mil hole, in line with the 3s. Okay, and then I need to finish his backside off. And I can go and about there. And then just a bit of sanding, as much as I can get in there, because the parting tool is not the best of smooth finishes. So that's up to there, 180. The pencil, what, sir? If I remember, but as you've reminded me, yeah, I don't need them anymore, so they could go. You could just rub them off with an eraser, but yeah, it's better if they're out of the way. There we go. And then you can either part it off, or I like to use the little Japanese saw thing, another tool that I've picked up. A nice store with a lot of these on at Harrogate. And I say that the little lid there is going to go because he needs a 3mm hole. I made a mistake on the one I'd done for tonight, and I put a 4mm hole in. There he is. And I think his tail's too thick, but I'll pass them round later and you can decide. But the 3mm hole is better. I think Emma Cook might do something like these, and she uses 2mm leather. So a little 3mm hole. And just a final bit of sand on. And that's the wood done. And the last thing you want is a point there. I don't think I've got one. It wants to be a nice flat bottom. There. Now, you could buy some plastic eyes. They are Woodturners, aren't we? So I like to turn the eyes, and I like to turn them, if I can find it, in ebony. And you can get little offcuts of ebony still. And if not, in something like African blackwood. Yes, not African black, yeah, blackwood, yeah, I remember right. You can have brown eyes, so you can use mahogany or basically any kind of wood you can find. And I've got some pin jaws here, which should hold a small piece of wood, which I should have left out. Quite often you find that, without being unkind to Mike down at Snainton, he doesn't give you anything for nothing, or out from out. So he'll sell out pieces like this for 50p, tiny little offcuts off things. Well, if it's dark, this is ideal for cutting up into small pieces like this, and you can get 3 eyes out of that. And we should be able to hold this in here. I think this is ebony, which I picked up from a furniture place once. Pardon? It'd ruin your piano, wouldn't it? Yeah. I think they were genuine ebony, weren't they? And back in the days, yeah. All right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you could use any wood and just burn it, ebonize it, you know, paint it black even. But it's nice to have a bit of ebony. So the place I got this from, he was selling some strips like this for very little because he'd been using it as inlay in something he'd been doing. It's a long way to go because he's up in Dunkeld in Scotland. Now, when it gets down to small diameters like this, rather than using calipers, I've got a set of spanners, and that's a 4mm spanner, yeah, and that's the size of his eye. So, no, the stem for his eyes is 3. His actual eyeball is 4. Yeah. So I just put that on there. Until it drops. Go a bit further. And then I just need to round off his eye. Like that. Give it a quick sand. Go straight to 180 because it doesn't need a lot. Just to get it nice and round. Yeah. And then these go in on a stem, and it's the stem which is 3 mils. So there's a 3mm spanner. Got these from Harrogate as well. I didn't say where I got them from. But if you haven't been, there's these wonderful long stalls sort of selling all kinds of bits of tools. And the really good thing is it's the weekend before my birthday. So I can buy my own birthday presents. There we go. So that's an eye. I reckon the eye takes about as long as a mouse does, which people don't like. I also make cricket trophies, and turning the little bales take as long as turning the big trophy. Now, being a miser, if I use that, I'm going to lose that much ebony. I mean, that's a lot, isn't it? So I got this, to be honest, I don't know what it is, perhaps somebody can tell me. I think it's to do with decorating. That isn't quite. So I can just take that off without losing any wood, really. Okay, and that's one of my mouse eyes. And with a bit of polish on, he gets a shine in his eye as well. Now, to try and make another one to match that, it's virtually impossible. So, what I do, hope I've brought it. I have a little rack for eyes, and I make about a dozen at a time and put them in, and then find 2 that match. Believe me, to actually try and make them match, you have a very, very good wood turner. So, yes. Trust Martin. Yeah. So when you've got 2 that match, see that one's ever so slightly bigger than this one. And if you put them on, you can tell, you know, so that they won't be right. But there he goes. And the other thing that sometimes happens is although I've used my spanner, sometimes they won't quite fit in this hole. Yeah? Now, rather than putting that back on and trying to make it smaller, you need to make the hole a bit bigger. So I would have a 3.5mm spanner, drill bit, sorry. I think that's 3.5. And just make this one bigger. I should say ebony is quite brittle, and that one has just broken off inside the hole. And sometimes this will just snap. It's a very brittle sort of wood, but I think this is 3.5. So even though it went inside a 3mm spanner, it won't go inside a 3mm hole. So that's now 3.5mm, and if I can find the little eye, what do I do with it? There it is. That should now fit in. Yeah. Not quite. Anyway, I'm not going to go on too long with that. Oh yeah, it will go in, but I don't want to push it in because I don't want to glue it in place tonight. I'll just show you how to make the ears. Then we'll stop for a... Oh, I need a waving standing up as well. Normally, I would just put this on a belt sander and get him right, but I haven't got a belt sander tonight, so let's just see if I can sand a bit off. I can find the chuck key. There it is. I'd like to say that all this, if I can find, is just because I'm in demonstrating, but it's not. It's just like this at home as well. I can never remember where I put things down. So this is just an ordinary sanding pad. And I ought to be able to get enough off his bottom to stand him up. Yeah? And again, there's a lot of decisions made about what's the right sort of angle for him to be pointing. And I quite like them to point up quite a bit. And sometimes they'll be slightly to one side, which I don't mind. So it just looks like he's got a bit of a cockeyed look on life. Right, the ears. Yep. There's a little template that you make, it's like a lollipop. It's really two circles with a little line between them. And then I just draw around that onto a piece of leather. That's an old tool belt. It says Stanley on it. It's going to keep me going in ears for quite a few years yet, I think. So I've used gardening gloves as well in the past, but I'm sure you can buy bits of leather. And what you do is you squeeze up that bit there and push it into this hole. Right? And squeezing it up makes it just the sort of cauliflower shape, you know, and by the time you've got two of those in, you've got the two eyes in and the two ears. And then the tail, well, when I first started making them, I just cut a piece of leather flat from the same thing I was cutting the ears from. It looks much nicer if it's round. So I found a place online. There's quite a few of them, and they sell leather in 3mm, 4mm, 5mm. So we can just cut off a piece of tail. Pop that in his rear end. And again, I'm going to have to change that hole to 3.5mm because it doesn't quite fit. Even though it says it's 3mm leather. There we go. And bit of super glue in each place. Put them in. Once they're in, that's it. You've had it. So that's why I'm not doing it tonight, because I best sat down really to do it. But there's a little mouse. It's taken me half an hour. I would make 10 bodies. I would drill them all. I would make all the leather ears and the eyes, all as batches, and then put them together. But I'll be honest with you, it's not a money-making, well, it is, but it takes a long time. They take quite a lot of time to make. I haven't decided yet whether I like a black tail or a natural leather tail, but there's a few here you can have a look at half time. So there's a little baby mouse. We've sold quite a few of these. We make a little box for him to fit in with a lid. Charge £20 instead of £8, and we've sold quite a few like that. But there's the mouse with all the possible variations. But so you can use any sort of wood. That's just a piece of larch. You can make them all sorts of different sizes. I don't change the size of the eyes and the ears, even if I make a small one. Because I don't think it's necessary. I think it's best if they are quite large, the ears. I know they're much larger than reality, but I'm not making a reality size mouse. Now, mentioned in the bulletin, I brought along some kits. And there are 4 mouse kits. Each kit will make 2 mice. And inside there's the little bit of ebony. I haven't made any bits for you. There's a bit of ebony. There's a template for the ear. There's a piece of card to make a template. There's a bit of leather to make some ears, and there's a bit of leather to make the tail. There's some other kits there. There's some light pull kits. There's some snowmen kits, which I'll do after the break. And I'm selling them all for Sue Ryder hospices. My brother-in-law died a couple of months ago, and we're doing a sponsored walk for him on Saturday. Well, no, for the hospice on Saturday, because they were brilliant with him in his last couple of weeks. So all the money from sales of those kits tonight will go to the hospice movement. So if you're interested, what I've tried to do is, if you want to make things like this, you usually need to buy things in bulk, like large pieces of leather. So I've just put enough in so you can have a go and see what you think with the snowmen, with the light pulls, the key rings I'll mention after the break as well. Yeah, and tea's ready, according to Lance. Okay, we'll start again. So out of that wood pile, my wood burning logs, I found a few bits of beech that I cut into about 4-inch long, 1.5 inches wide. And I've still got enough on here to turn a ball. And if I turn that ball, now you can use all kinds of fancy kits to turn the balls. You've got sphere jigs and things, or you can use a little template. I've turned enough now to more or less get it right just by eye. But I won't turn it. But what I would do with this ball then is to just draw a wavy line on it in pencil. I don't know if you can see it or not, but nothing particularly accurate or planned. And I will then pyrograph this, and one or two of you have seen me using these things. I used a Peter Child machine for years, and I would still recommend it as an excellent machine. And you can get different nibs for Peter Child, but I've tended to use this that somebody got me for Christmas last year, which is a razor tip. I think it's what Joey Richardson was using. Yeah. And the difference, or the big difference, is that razor tip make complete pens, whereas Peter Child makes a pen with two terminals, and then you can put lots of different bits of shaped wire in. That costs about £25. This, well, actually, this is razor tip as well. But a Peter Child pen costs about £40, but then the wire's only a few pence. But razor tip make lots and lots of different types of burners. I think the history is that they make them for people who make ducks and geese and birds. Now, if it was plugged in, it would probably work better. And the reason I've gone on to this machine, it's the same kind of power and everything as the Peter Child one, but it lets you put two pens in at once, and then you can flip between them, but everything else is the same. And this pen, I'll move over here so the camera can get it. I'm going to have this on quite high. Usually I tell people to turn these down a lot, but this is on about 8. And it's very good because it's like a spoon, and it will burn quite large areas quite quickly. Now you have to believe me when I say I could turn this little ball in about 5 minutes, but then to do this burning is probably going to take half an hour. So that'll take us up to 9:30. So in true Blue Peter fashion, here's one I did earlier. But that pen is very, very good for this sort of surface filling. And I say, if you've got a Peter Child machine, they've started, and the only difference is you would get the nib and then you would screw it in and it would do a similar job. But pyrography is a very slow craft. And that's what I'm trying to do, is to make a little Christmas pudding. So the Christmas pudding, the creamy bit, the icing, is just the wood polished up. And then the bottom is pyrographed. And you might have noticed as I was burning this, you don't get an even burn. You don't want one for a Christmas pudding, you want it to look textured. So that was with that. And then you can either cut yourself a piece of holly to go on top, or you can go to Hobbycraft and buy a bag for £1. I had to ask the lady on the counter where I could find these because I knew they had them from the internet, but I think there's about 30 in there for £1. But you could cut them out of a piece of thin wood. They also have slightly bigger plastic ones. You get 8 for £1 for those, I think. But they've got 3 berries on. And a tiny little hook on the top so that you can put some string through and make yourself a little tree ornament. So there's a Christmas pud. Here's a bigger one with the plastic on, right? Am I pointing in the right places, Martin? Yeah. And if you want to be more creative, you can. It's probably sealed itself up. Once you come into different temperatures, there we go. You can hollow out the inside and make yourself a little, and then you could put a little gift inside. There we go. Yeah, that's a piece of yew. It's done in exactly the same way. Just turn to a ball, cut in half, hollowed, and obviously that takes a little bit more technique to figure out how to hollow both sides, but I've got 20 minutes left, so I'm not going to do it. But it's a nice challenge. And there's a Christmas pud. What do you reckon? £5? I'm sure somebody would pay £5 for it. Maybe £8 for that. 800 if you put a diamond ring inside it. Yeah? So there's a couple of ideas that I'll leave out if you want to have a look. But all you need for that, I shall be making quite a few of the ones that don't open up. You're just looking for a piece of wood that's 1.5 inches, or in metric. It's 40 mil square bar. You get about 5 out of one piece. And you could probably put it in here and then turn 5 balls without having to faff about with the chucks and things. Yeah? So what you want is a piece of creamy coloured wood. So this is spalted beech from that wood pile. But yew is nice and creamy. Beech would probably work. Birch, all kinds of stuff. All right, so there we go. The other thing I probably won't have time to do tonight is these grass pots. I haven't sold any of this particular shape, but I've sold some about this size. £10. They sell, believe me, they do. I've seen these with one piece of foxtail. Could be Timothy, who's the grass expert. £15. It's a little offcut, but this is actually that's a piece of laburnum. Yeah, and there's a slight intrusion there, so it's not perfectly round, but that doesn't matter. Yeah, little grass pots. I think if you are selling them, it helps to put a bit of grass in so people can see this is nodding grass. If you're short of this or you'd like some, I've got a lot of it in my garden. If you plant it, you will never get rid of it. It spreads, but it's lovely and it nods. It does that in the garden. It's nice in the garden, it's just that it gets everywhere. So that's an idea. And what I've been saying about shape is, take that one idea, and that's about an hour's work at the most, maybe less than that, probably less than that. Got my little rings on with Formica. And just playing around, and I think if I was one trio, I'd probably want this one to be slightly smaller so that I had 3 different heights. And a bit like making the eyes, I'd probably make a dozen of these and then match them up in 3s. 3s always work nicely, but people could buy them individually. Slightly bigger offcuts. There's that's a laburnum log. The idea would be pencil pot or something like that. Use it for what you like, really. There's a match pot. You can buy multicoloured matchsticks, but they cost a fortune. So I haven't gone that far. And of course, these are safety matches, so they're no good unless you have one of them on the bottom. And you can buy this paper. This is safety match paper, but it's quite expensive. It's about, I'll show you. If I can remember where I put it. Oh, there it is. There, that's what you get. £6. Yeah. But box of matches, you get 3 pots like that in, £1, just over £1. 20p for that little circle, maybe? No, 50p. Sell it for £12. Yeah, so this stuff, I think it's got phosphor on it. It has to have something to react with the match. Sandpaper and stuff won't work. So you do need something like this. But just another idea. And again, limitless possibilities on the shape that you choose to end up with. Not a lot of hollowing involved. You can turn that out with a drill. Get a 1-inch drill, something like that. Or you can use a Forstner bit. You don't need to really do any hollowing inside. So it's not a particularly difficult thing to do. The key rings, there's a lot of key rings kits, well, there's a few key ring kits at the back. Now I buy key ring boxes like this with 150 pieces in. So unless you're wanting to do lots of making this kind of stuff, it's got all the bits in. It's got the chain, it's got the eyelet, and the little connector link as well. But again, you've got all sorts of possibilities. This is just a little offcut of oak. I sold hundreds of these. I keep putting the price up and people keep buying them. The latest price is £5 for that. And they were selling. I used to sell them at £3 or something, £2 even. Again, it takes 5 minutes to turn and 20 minutes to do the pyrography. It's slow. But if you don't do the pyrography, it's not as nice a piece. You can still sell it, nice piece of oak, but the pyrography just adds it a little bit of something extra. And there's some kits to make 5 of those at the back there if you want to have a go. But I'll guarantee that they will sell as long as you make a decent job of them. And as I say, I was selling them at a £5 a time at the last sale that we had. So I actually made one of these once. And then I thought it didn't look as good as the original. This is a giant redwood cone. So I just put a key ring on that. And I saw some of them as well. You just pick them up off the floor. Well, if you can find a giant redwood, of course. But there are a few around. If you've got any long planks, you can cut a plank into 1-inch square pieces and make Harry Potter wands. If you've got a hazel tree, you can cut a branch and have a go at making hazel wands. They don't cost much, so you don't need to charge very much for them. 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes if you put a bit of finish on it and a bit of different colour. That's just a felt tip pen when it's going round on the lathe. A little bit of burr here. It's an offcut from a ball that I was turning. So why not turn a bit of ball in there as well? I put £15 on that and it's not sold yet, so maybe I've been a bit high. If you've not tried selling your stuff before, just have a go, put a price, don't undercut yourself. Just think how long it's taken you and then think how much you normally would get paid by the hour. If they sell, keep putting the prices up, and if they don't sell, put the price down a little bit or do a better job of it. Right, the last piece I wanted to show you, with Christmas coming up, I'm giving all my secrets away tonight. But I don't mind because, to be honest, I have not got enough time to turn as many of these things as I would like to turn. Well, not like to, but I know I could make hundreds of these things and I would be able to sell them. So this is my model. This is the first one that I ever made. And I'm afraid I found him in the garden. I think he'd been there quite a while. But he's a little snowman. And he's made out of yew with a blackwood head. So, and his scarf is actually an old scarf that I chopped up. And I started making those about 10 years ago. And a bit like John said, you know, everybody in the family got one or more. And then I started selling them. I think they've gone up to £7 each now. Started selling them at £3 or £4, but I realised they're not quick. Right, so having said they're not quick, I've got 10 minutes before 9:30. This was a log that cost 75p. If you're keen to have a go at one of these, Snainton have got a lot of these logs in. They're usually about 12 inches long, so you can get 3 snowmen out of them. But you want to look for ones that have got a lot of sapwood and not much heartwood. Because if you get the opposite, you get a brown snowman and you want a whitish snowman. So in the kits for these, I have put ones with plenty of sapwood. So that end's waxed. This is where I've cut it. So I put the wax end here so that the teeth of the stem centre stand more chance of biting into the wood. And should be able to go pretty fast. Take the bark off and make it round. But be careful. I think I haven't made the mistake that I often make. I'm just going to turn this between centres, but I want to leave a little bit of bark on at the bottom, if you can see there, if at all possible. and quite often I dive in and I forget about that. And normally, a snowman, I feel the right size for him is 8 centimetres. And the width is about 3 to 3.5 centimetres. So 8 centimetres is there. And what I want is for him to have a base. And then for his body to come out a little bit. Let's give him a bit more of a base. And then his head. Well, they want some shoulders. Then I like them to taper down a bit. Before coming out again to the base. A little bit more. There we go. I don't want his neck to go to be a sort of V point. I want a slight curve on it because he needs enough space for a scarf. And then his head. There we go. And you can play around with different shapes for bodies, trying to get the perfect one. And a bit like the mice, some of them look much better than others. And it's due to very, very subtle changes in shape. And sometimes I find myself making a batch and think, these are not right. There's one that got a bit big at one point, and it's just not in the right proportion. And you notice that he's brown rather than white, because the log had got much more heartwood. So he didn't really do very well. The ones I've got left are the ones that haven't sold, so they're probably not the best ones, apart from him. Okay, so conscious of the time, I'm not going to sand him and finish him and everything. But it's a nice white finish. There's a few little flecks in here, but that doesn't matter. And we've left the bark on as much as I can so that I am going to finish it. I can't resist. You need enough on, but if it's flaking, it's going to come off. So you need to just knock off what you can. There we go. I'm going to finish him because now again, because this is you don't want to spend too long at this speed sanding, because you're going to heat him up and he's going to crack. U is terrible for cracking, and particularly this one because it's got all these little eyes in it, that's where the cracks are going to come from. So you need to, well, say, do not spend a long time sanding. So we've got, just go through the grits, won't take long. There we go. And 240 should be enough. Okay. So there he is, all ready for his coat. And again, for the coat, you could just use a felt tip pen, but I've got a pyrography kit, so I should have one of these with a little ball on the end of it. There it is. So we'll just put in, I don't want his face to be where those, sometimes one of those just matches where his eye would be, but I'm going to put them at the back. This is a nice front for him. See what I nearly did then? I nearly turned that on. So let's turn the power off. Because I wanted to turn this on, and I'm not thinking. Very, very dangerous. So turn the power off. So his face is always 2 eyes and a smile. This is higher than it should be. That'll do. And then he always gets 4 buttons. 1, 2, 3, 4. There he is. He's done. He then gets a scarf. Now, you can buy parcel ribbon. I quite like him to have a sort of rustic look. So I buy jute ribbon, and I think this scarf needs to be about 15 centimetres. And he gets a loop around there. I haven't polished him yet. I was going to show you the polish. A bit of sanding sealer, including over the bark, if you want to try and keep that in place. There we go. To watch out, because some of the bark has come off and is getting little black specks on his coat. There we go. Cellulose. I always use cellulose. Not particularly knowing why, but just do. There we go. We'll dry him off. If you wanted him to have a really good finish, you could use some Yorkshire grit. If you're not aware of it, then it's abrasive and it's wax. So it'll give it a bit of coat, and it will also, let's do it. So I put a bit of Yorkshire grit on, just smooth any possible wrinkles off him. I've turned that off now. It'll take a couple of minutes to come back on. Can't really wax the bark very easily, but do what you can. Right, there we go. Speed it up. Now this isn't a finishing wax, this is an abrasive wax. So all this will do is get rid of any of the lack of sanding quality that I've created. Okay, and there we go. But he's looking nice and shiny now. So Yorkshire wax is good for a bit of well, a bit of finesse really. All right, so it's looking shapely. Now, he needs a flat head for his hat. There we go. So, now you can just stick a drill bit in, or you can make yourself a little, again, from an offcut, make yourself a little sanding disc. Put a bit of Velcro backing on it. And fire away. I don't know whether this is I think it'll do it. I wouldn't try doing this with a drill. You need to be able to hold him. And it's a funny thing, but again, there's very subtleties about that, how far down it comes. If you leave it too high, then they look a little bit wrong to me. What you want is his hat. I think his hat should be just about the same diameter as the top of his head. I always like to have them at a slope rather than just being one piece. I've tried turning them out of one piece and they don't look right. So there we go. And then a bit like before, I would get a piece of offcut of mahogany or ebony or something, and I would try and turn a piece to fit the snowman, but I'd turn a dozen hats until I find one that works. See, that one is slightly too small for that particular snowman. So I'd turn another. I'm not going to do it because of time. And end up with one that works. I'll pass him round. Oh, no, I won't. What I did want to show you, because I think some of you might not have seen these, is how I polish things. And almost everything I ever do, I polish with buffing mops. So that's a 2MT mandrel, and then this thing fits on, and with Allen key, just tighten that up. Now, I've got this fastened to my first lathe that I ever bought. I still use it, but the only thing I ever use it for is polishing. So I don't need to do all this on my working lathe. It's just set up to polish. That's okay. So apologies to those of you that know all about these, but I'm aware we've got a lot of new people in recently. So 3 buffing mops. This one is the first one. And I use Tripoli wax. All right. Which is an abrasive wax, a bit like Yorkshire grit. Has the same effect. And you want it going about 1600. That's 1800. put a little bit of wax on, don't put too much on, and then you get your snowman and you buff him. Down here, so that right. Let's try again. Let's get this out of the way a bit. So you give them a good buff up. And because this is abrasive, it's making the polish better all the time. No point buffing the bark because it'll just come off. Although you can have a go. See what happens. There we go. And then you take this off and put a second wheel on. And this one is for a slightly less abrasive wax called White Diamond. Now you can see the difference in size because I've had this since I bought the buffing system, and that's how much you need on. Don't put too much on. But this just polishes the AAA. Still a little bit abrasive. Should have done the light pull that I did earlier as well. There we go. It's very good for giving you very nice nails. So, okay. No, yes and no. That's my original Tripoli mop. They just wear away. But you could still use that. I've had this about 10 years, and I haven't changed this mop and I haven't changed the other one. So I think, yeah, they do last quite a while. So as long as you're always working down at the bottom here, you minimise the chance of it firing off. It will do. Sooner or later, one of them will come off, and it's a bit scary. And what's really, really upsetting is you've finished your piece of work and it hits the floor. So you get a dint in it, and then you say a few words. There we go. Now this is actually a Beal buffing system. Nowadays, I don't think you'd find it, but if you find Chestnut, make them. And Chestnut, the mops are slightly smaller, and unfortunately, Chestnut mops do not fit Beal mandrels. Yeah, but it's the screw here. It's an American, it's one of them UNC things. Because Beal is an American company. Like the final setup is for carnauba wax, very hard palm oil wax. A little bit more on. And this should give them a really nice finish. And it's a hard wearing finish, so people are going to pick these up because they're that kind of thing. So this will withstand quite a lot of little fingerprints. Okay, there he is. I would have glued his hat on before I did the buffing. And when I'm doing the mice, I glue the ears in before I do the buffing. But I don't glue the, sorry, I glue his eyes in, but not the ears. Yeah, so that the eyes come up all sparkly as well. So there he is. Where's his brother? There he is. I'll pass them round so you can have a look. But that's exactly the same technique as I've just done, but I've finished him off. And I'd just part this off between centres and then use a drill, or I could use this thing that that I put on there and just hollow it out slightly so that it'll stand up, right? But essentially that's the two the same. No two ever are the same because of the yew wood. Now, if you really want to make money, everybody you know wants a snowman. But what about a snow woman? And then if you've got friends or family who have children, then you probably want a snow girl. And if you've got a snow girl, or your family's got a snow boy in, you might want one of them as well. And you can even go down to snow babies with any of the smaller offcuts. Yeah? And they're all done in exactly the same way. These are pom-pom hats. These are mahogany. And again, I just turn lots of them and find one that fits the hat once I've done them. So I found that I've sold a lot because people say, right, I want a man and a woman, and can I have 2 girls and 1 boy? And we sold £25 instead of £5. Well, I said that they've gone up to, I think I'll be selling them at £7 this year. So say we get snow families. To show you how mean I am, sometimes you get, now that would make a snow baby. But if you just have that much left, what can you do? Well, what I did once was I turned a little mound of snow and put a hat on it. And I put a note on it saying Christmas is over. Somebody bought it, which is why I haven't got it to show you. So, lots of ideas that you can try, but the snow family are good fun. And the hardest thing to make is the lady's hat, which is, I quite often give them purple heart hats, but you've got to make the base flat so that it'll glue onto the head. And you see, this lady, I think her hat's too high. I think she needs a little bit more off her head so that the hat is fitting a bit tighter. But you put them all out and you see which ones sell, and then you know which is the best design. But to be honest, sometimes I put 50 out and I've sold all 50. A bigger piece of wood. Well, it depends how slim the lady is, doesn't it? Yeah, the shape of them comes from the piece of wood rather than from the particular person. But you can see there's lots of different little hats in there, usually made out of ebony again. And just experiment. So, the whole point of the night is to show you what you can make out of small offcuts or just small pieces of wood. And be clear that, you know, people will pay for pieces like this. My son was once asked to make some incense holders like this. So that's a little offcut piece of oak. And I think we were charging this chap £1 each for them. He put an incense stick in it and put it in his shop and sold them at £8 each. And he was selling them because he kept asking us for more. Not surprising, is it? It's not a bad markup on £1, but it cost us nothing. It cost us 5 minutes on the lathe. So there's hardly any piece of wood really that you should throw away. Certainly not any exotic woods. And what I would say is if you ever buy any wood which isn't square, don't put it on your lathe and turn away a rectangular piece, because you'll lose potentially a little piece like that. And wood is expensive nowadays, particularly exotic woods. And if you can cut off a slice like that, see, that's got a bit of burr in it. Those things you were looking at earlier, these, you can make one of them out of it. £4, £3, 20p for the clip. So I hope you've got a few ideas there, and I hope you'll turn them into something you can bring along to the sale in November. 80% of our takings came from things that cost less than £10 last time. Yeah, 80% of everything we sold was, I think 90% was under £20. Now, of course, we want the big things as well. I mean, even this is a piece of scrap wood. It's covered full of woodworm. It's been microwaved, so it should be all right now. But and it hasn't sold, so it's probably not a good idea. But we like a few big things, which people like John provide for us and Lance. But it's these things that people are going to pick up, and they'll pay, I don't know, £6, £8, at least £10 for a little jewellery box like that. I've seen those at £40 in galleries. At least £10 for an apple or a pear. Christmas trees. Oh, that was the other thing. Well, you have to have a Christmas tree for your snow family, don't you? So, another £5. Okay, that's enough. Thanks very much for listening to me, and hope you've got a few ideas from all that.
I've got to make an admission. I've been touring too many years. I've never actually played a mouse.
Well, there you go.
I have bought a kit.
Thank you.
I think once again, the has an enormous amount of talent. Again, thank you very much.
You're welcome.